Dear listener, in a world that measures greatness by visibility, wealth, and applause, the Quran introduces a different scale entirely. There are people whose names are not carved into monuments, yet they are elevated in the heavens. There are individuals whose lives were filled with hardship, yet they were chosen above others. Among them are women, not because of status, but because of sincerity. To be chosen by Allah is not a matter of lineage alone. It is not about beauty, influence, or public recognition. It is about faith when faith is difficult. It is about purity when temptation surrounds. It is about trust when fear feels overwhelming. Divine selection does not follow human standards. It follows the measure of the heart. The Prophet Muhammad ﷺ spoke of the best women of their time. He mentioned Maryam bint Imran, Asiya, the wife of Fir'aun, Khadija bint Khuwaylid, and Fatima bint Muhammad. These were not random names. Each lived in vastly different circumstances. One stood alone under accusation. One believed inside a palace of tyranny. One supported revelation at its birth. One endured hardship with quiet dignity. Yet all were united by something deeper than circumstance, unwavering faith. Contrast defines their elevation. The world often celebrates those who dominate spaces publicly. Allah honors those who remain steadfast privately. The world admires those who accumulate comfort. Allah elevates those who sacrifice for truth. Temporary recognition fades. Divine honor does not. These women were not first in worldly achievement. They were first in surrender. They were first in loyalty, first in patience, first in trust. They were chosen not because life was easy for them, but because they chose obedience when ease was absent. To call them mothers of paradise is not symbolic exaggeration. It reflects status rooted in eternal reward. Their stories are not fairy tales of perfection. They are narratives of struggle, shaped by reliance upon Allah. Before exploring their lives individually, one truth must be understood. Divine selection is never random. It is earned through sincerity that survives trial. And each of these women faced a trial so profound that history itself bends around it. The question is not simply why they were honored. The deeper question is this: what did they do when no one was watching, that made Allah choose them above the worlds? Maryam alayhi salam, the woman who stood alone before she became a sign for the world. Maryam alayhi salam was known for something quieter: devotion. The Quran describes her as chosen and purified, raised above the women of her time. But her elevation did not begin with miracles. It began with worship. She grew up in dedication, serving in the sanctuary, living a life defined not by attention, but by sincerity. Her solitude was not loneliness, it was closeness to Allah. Then came the moment that would change history. An angel appeared before her in human form. Fear struck first, natural human fear. She sought refuge in Allah immediately. That reflex reveals her inner strength. Even before understanding what was happening, she turned to protection from her Lord. When she was told she would bear a child without a father, her question was not rebellion. It was bewildering. How could this be? The response was simple. When Allah decrees a matter, He only says, "Be," and it is. The miracle was not her doing, it was divine will. But miracles do not erase hardship. Pregnant and alone, Maryam withdrew from her people. The weight she carried was not only physical, it was social. She knew what accusation would follow. She knew the whispers that would circulate. The Qur'an Anne captures her anguish when labor pains drove her to the trunk of a palm tree. In that moment, she expressed a human wish that she might have been forgotten before this trial began. Contrast defines her story: isolation versus divine support, accusation versus purity, weakness versus chosen strength. When she returned carrying the child, her people confronted her. Their words were sharp, loaded with suspicion. Yet she did not defend herself with arguments. She pointed to the infant, and by Allah's permission, Isa alayhi salam spoke from the cradle, declaring himself a servant and prophet of Allah. In that instant, heaven defended her honor. Maryam did not seek to prove herself. Allah proved her. Her strength was not loud, it was steadfast. She endured public scrutiny without collapsing. She trusted divine timing when explanation seemed impossible. Her story is not merely about miraculous birth. It is about unwavering reliance. In a world where reputation often feels fragile, Maryam's example stands firm. Human accusation cannot override divine truth. Isolation cannot remove divine companionship. When Allah chooses someone, even the harshest trial becomes elevation. Maryam alayhi salam stood alone, yet she was never abandoned. And through her patience, she became a sign for all generations. Asiya radiallahu anhu, faith in the palace of a tyrant. If Maryam's trial was isolation, Asia's was proximity. She did not live in seclusion. She lived in a palace, surrounded by luxury, guarded by power, married to one of the most oppressive men in history. Pharaoh declared himself lord over his people. His palace was a place of authority, dominance, and fear. And inside that palace lived a woman whose heart belonged to Allah alone. Asiya radiallahu anhu witnessed cruelty firsthand. She saw tyranny enforced without hesitation. Yet, when Musa alayhi salam was placed into the river and brought before her, something stirred within her heart. The child who would grow to challenge Pharaoh was first sheltered by his own household through her compassion. Her belief did not come from rebellion, it came from recognition. When Musa proclaimed the message of Tawheed, Asiya believed. She believed not quietly in ignorance, but consciously in defiance of her surroundings. Faith inside a tyrant's palace is heavier than faith in safety. Every act of belief carries risk. Contrast defines her story. Palace versus paradise, luxury versus faith, power versus submission. She had access to comfort beyond imagination, servants, wealth, influence, yet none of it could compete with certainty in Allah. When her faith became known, Pharaoh did not respond with debate, he responded with punishment. Torture was not a threat, it became reality. She was exposed under the sun, bound, subjected to cruelty meant to force denial, but her dua reveals her strength. The Quran preserves her words. My Lord, build for me near you a house in paradise, and save me from Pharaoh and his deeds, and save me from the wrongdoing people. Notice what she asked for, not rescue first, not comfort first. She asked for proximity to Allah, near you. Even in pain, her focus was eternal. The palace around her was temporary. The palace she asked for was everlasting. Her body endured suffering, but her heart was anchored in something greater. Contrast sharpens again. Pharaoh claimed dominion over earth. Asiya asked for closeness to the Lord of the heavens. He threatened her with worldly punishment. She sought eternal reward. It is narrated that before her soul departed, Allah allowed her to see her home in paradise. The vision replaced pain with certainty. The woman, once surrounded by gold, died desiring only nearness to Allah. Asiya's story is not about surviving comfort. It is about rejecting it when it conflicts with truth. She teaches that the environment does not define faith. Even in a palace of disbelief, sincerity can thrive. She was not known for political speeches. She was known for conviction, and that conviction elevated her among the best of women. In the shadow of tyranny, she chose belief, and that choice made her eternal. Khadija radiallahu anhu, the first to believe. If Asiya's faith was tested by tyranny, Khadija's radiallahu anhu faith was tested by uncertainty. She did not live in a palace of oppression. She lived in Makkah, a society rooted in tradition and tribal order. She was respected, wealthy, intelligent, and known for integrity. But when revelation first descended upon the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, comfort gave way to a responsibility far heavier than status. The night of the first revelation was not triumphant, it was overwhelming. The Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam returned home shaken, carrying an experience beyond comprehension. In that vulnerable moment, Khadija did not hesitate. She did not question his sanity. She did not doubt his truthfulness. She wrapped him in reassurance and spoke words that still echo. Allah would never disgrace a man who upheld family ties, helped the poor, honored guests, and supported the weak. Contrast defines her greatness. Doubt versus certainty. Fear versus reassurance. Isolation versus support. She became the first believer, not after public proof, not after mass acceptance, but at the very beginning, when Islam had no visible power, no followers, no protection, she believed. Faith at that stage was not socially beneficial. It was risky. It required standing beside a message that challenged idols and disrupted norms. Her wealth became a tool for the Ummah. During years of boycott and hardship, she sacrificed comfort without complaint. The comforts of trade and status faded, but her loyalty did not. She supported the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam emotionally, financially, and spiritually. Her role was not secondary, it was foundational. The Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam never forgot her. Long after her passing, he spoke of her with gratitude. He honored her memory, sent gifts to her friends, and reminded others of her support. When questioned about his attachment, he responded that she believed in him when others rejected him, supported him when others withheld, and shared her wealth when others denied. Contrast sharpens again. Wealth versus sacrifice. Status versus sincerity, public influence versus private strength. Khadija's elevation was not in dramatic confrontation, it was in unwavering steadiness. She did not seek recognition, she sought to serve the truth. When revelation felt heavy, she made it lighter. When the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam faced rejection, she strengthened him. Her home became the first sanctuary of Islam. Her belief became the first pillar of support. Her sacrifice became part of the foundation upon which the Ummah would stand. Khadija radiallahu anhu teaches that greatness is not only an enduring trial, but in strengthening others through it. She was chosen not because she led armies or delivered speeches, but because she stood firm when standing firm was hardest. And through that firmness, she became among the women promised paradise, not for what she owned, but for what she gave. Fatima radiallahu anhu, the leader of the women of paradise, if Khadija radiallahu anhu was the foundation at the beginning of revelation, Fatima radiallahu anhu was the quiet strength that carried its legacy forward. She grew up in a home where revelation descended, where hardship was normal and where sacrifice was constant. She was not raised in luxury. She witnessed boycotts, hunger, loss, and opposition, yet from that environment emerged a character defined by modesty and dignity. The Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam loved her deeply. When she entered a room, he would stand, kiss her forehead, and seat her beside him. But his love did not shield her from difficulty. After marriage to Ali radiallahu anhu, her life remained simple, grinding grain until her hands became rough, performing household work without complaint, living without excess while the world outside shifted. Contrast defines her life clearly. Hardship versus honor, simplicity versus spiritual elevation, hidden effort versus eternal recognition. It is narrated that, when she asked her father for a servant to ease her burden, he offered something greater, remembrance of Allah before sleep. Tasbih, tahmid, and takbir, not luxury, but strength through dhikr. Fatima accepted. Her leadership was not defined by political influence. It was defined by internal refinement. The Prophet Muhammad ﷺ said she would be the leader of the women of paradise. This statement carries weight. Leadership in paradise is not granted by lineage alone, it is granted by character. Fatima embodied humility, patience, and unwavering attachment to truth. She also carried emotional resilience. After the passing of her mother, Khadija radiallahu anhu, she comforted the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam during some of his most painful moments. When he was harmed publicly, she defended him. When sorrow visited their home, she stood steady. Contrast sharpens again. The world often equates leadership with visibility and power. Fatima's leadership was quiet, rooted in purity and devotion. She did not command armies, she commanded respect through sincerity. Her life teaches that spiritual rank does not require public acclaim. It requires steadfastness in unseen effort. It requires patience when resources are limited. It requires closeness to Allah above comfort. Fatima radiallahu anhu represents continuity. Through her came generations. Through her strength, the message endured beyond the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam lifetime. Yet, her greatness lies not in lineage alone, but in faith lived sincerely. She did not chase status. Status followed her. She did not seek recognition. Recognition was promised to her in the next life. In a world that often measures women by appearance or influence, Fatima redefines worth. Simplicity can coexist with supremacy. Quiet devotion can lead to eternal leadership. And through her life, the pattern becomes clear. Divine elevation is rooted not in visibility, but in sincerity that survives hardship. What made them mothers of paradise? When we look at Maryam, Asiya, Khadija, and Fatima, their lives appear vastly different on the surface. One stood alone under accusation. One believed inside a palace of tyranny. One supported revelation at its birth. One endured hardship with quiet strength. Different eras, different environments, different trials. Yet all were elevated by Allah. What united them? It was not wealth. It was not a social influence. It was not public power. It was sincerity that remained firm under pressure. Maryam faced isolation and accusation, yet she trusted. Asiya faced torture and tyranny, yet she believed. Khadija faced uncertainty and boycott, yet she supported. Fatima faced hardship and simplicity, yet she remained patient. Their circumstances varied, but their response was consistent. Submission to Allah above everything else. Contrast defines their legacy. The world measures women by visibility, beauty, or influence. Allah measures by taqwa. The world rewards noise and display. Allah rewards sincerity and steadfastness. Temporary standards fade, eternal standards remain. They were not mothers of paradise because life was easy for them. They were chosen because they chose Allah when choosing Him cost something. Each endured a moment where comfort could have been prioritized. Each chose faith instead. There is also balance in their stories. Islam does not romanticize suffering for its own sake. Their elevation was not because they were harmed, but because they responded to harm with trust. Suffering alone does not raise rank. Patience anchored in faith does. For modern believers, especially women navigating pressure from culture, expectations, and comparison, their stories provide clarity. You do not need a palace to be honored. You do not need public validation to be elevated. You do not need perfection to be chosen. What you need is sincerity that survives trial. Their lives dismantle the illusion that greatness is loud. Greatness can be quiet. It can be in late-night prayer, in unseen sacrifice, in loyalty when others withdraw, in dignity when accused, in faith when isolated. The title, Mothers of Paradise, is not merely symbolic. It reflects nurturing qualities of belief, strength, and resilience that shape generations. They nurtured faith in themselves and in others. And through that nurturing, they became examples for all time. Their stories do not end with admiration. They end with an invitation. Invitation to redefine success. Invitation to prioritize character over applause. Invitation to seek a house near Allah as Asiya did. To trust in isolation as Maryam did. To support the truth as Khadija did. To remain patient in simplicity as Fatima did. Divine selection is not closed. The standard remains the same. And the question now is not why they were chosen. It is whether we are willing to walk the path that led them there.